everyone, welcome back to Prime Wealth. We're so glad to have you here with us today.
Absolutely. It's great to be with you all. Today we're diving into a really important topic, inflation-adjusted retirement income.
Right. It's something that affects all of us, especially as we plan for the future. You might think about how inflation impacts your savings, but do you really know how to make your retirement income keep pace?
Exactly, Jordan. It's crucial to understand that what seems like a comfortable nest egg now might not stretch as far in the future due to rising costs.
We'll explore strategies to ensure your income can adapt and grow over time. We'll talk about the importance of investing for the long term and how diversifying your income streams can help.
Plus, we'll touch on some practical tips for managing expenses in retirement. Things like budgeting and finding ways to save without sacrificing your lifestyle.
And of course, we'll share some insights on how to calculate your retirement needs, so you can feel more secure about what you're building for your future.
It's all about giving you the tools to navigate these waters confidently.
So whether you're nearing retirement or just starting to think about it, stick around, because we've got some valuable information coming your way.
Let's jump right into it.
Alex, when we talk about retirement planning, one of the biggest factors that people often overlook is the impact of inflation.
Absolutely, Jordan. It's such a crucial point. Many folks think they'll just need a certain amount saved up to retire comfortably, but they don't always account for how inflation can erode that purchasing power over time.
Right. If we look back even just a few years, prices on everything from groceries to healthcare have increased significantly. It can feel a bit overwhelming, can't it?
It really can. And for someone over 40, it becomes even more pressing. If you're planning on retiring in the next 15 to 20 years, you need to factor in how much more things are going to cost by then.
Exactly. I was reading a statistic recently that said if inflation averages 3% a year, something that costs $100 today will cost about $160 in just 20 years. That's a huge jump.
It is. And think about the emotional side of that too. For many people, saving for retirement is already a stressful endeavor. Adding inflation on top of that can really amplify those feelings of uncertainty.
Totally. I've spoken to friends who are in their late 40s and early 50s, and they often feel this pressure, like they're racing against time. They want to enjoy their retirement, but also want to make sure they're not left scrambling for funds.
That's a common concern. I had a client, let's call him Tom, who's just turned 50. He was convinced he had enough saved up for retirement. But when we sat down and crunched the numbers, with inflation factored in, he realized that his retirement income would be significantly less than he anticipated.
Wow, that must have been an eye-opener for him.
It really was. Tom had been thinking about his retirement as a fixed amount, rather than a dynamic one that needs to adjust with the economy. He felt a huge relief when we started exploring strategies to combat inflation, though.
That's a great point. It's not just about saving. It's about making those savings work harder for you.
Exactly. And it's not just the everyday costs we're talking about. Healthcare costs are rising even faster than general inflation. For someone planning to retire in their 60s, that's a significant factor to consider.
Yes! I've heard that healthcare can be one of the biggest expenses in retirement. If people underestimate that, they could find themselves in a really tough spot.
Right. It's not unusual for retirees to spend 15 to 20% of their income on healthcare, sometimes even more. If you haven't planned for that, it can take a serious toll on your financial security.
So it sounds like there's this delicate balance to strike between enjoying life now and planning for the future, while also accounting for inflation.
That's spot on. And for those over 40, the stakes feel higher. You want to enjoy the present, but also ensure you're not putting your future at risk.
And with the recent economic trends, like supply chain disruptions and rising interest rates, it feels like we're living in an uncertain financial climate.
For sure. Many people are feeling the pinch right now, and that uncertainty can lead to hesitation in making financial decisions. But it's crucial to stay proactive.
I imagine that's where having a solid plan comes into play. One that not only considers inflation, but also includes adjustments as the economic landscape changes.
Exactly. The good news is, there are strategies out there to help combat inflation's effects on retirement income. It's about being informed and adaptable.
Like investing in assets that historically outpace inflation, right?
Yes! Stocks, real estate, and even certain types of bonds can help. But it's also important to assess your risk tolerance. Not everyone is comfortable with the same level of investment.
That makes sense. And for those who may not want to dive deep into investing, there are still options like retirement accounts that offer tax advantages, right?
Absolutely. Contributing to accounts like a 401k or an IRA can help build your nest egg while also providing tax benefits. The key is to contribute consistently and adjust those contributions as your salary increases.
So it really comes down to being proactive, understanding your long-term needs, and being willing to adapt.
Exactly. One thing that many people forget is that retirement isn't just a financial decision, it's a lifestyle shift. You want to ensure your money aligns with your goals for the next chapter of your life.
And that alignment is especially important when considering how inflation could impact your desired lifestyle in retirement.
For sure. It's like planning for a journey. You wouldn't set off without a map, right?
Definitely. So what are some immediate steps people can take to start addressing these concerns?
Well, first, take a hard look at your current savings and expenses. Then consider projecting those expenses into the future, factoring in inflation.
And from there, I guess it's about adjusting your saving strategy based on those projections?
Precisely. It's about ensuring that your savings trajectory aligns with your retirement goals, taking inflation into account.
So those are some immediate steps you can take. Now let's bring everything together. So, Alex, when it comes to planning for inflation-adjusted retirement income, what are some core strategies that people should really focus on?
Well, one of the key strategies is to start with a solid understanding of your current expenses. You know, a lot of folks just look at their income, but it's really about what you need to spend to maintain your lifestyle.
Right, so it's not just about how much money you're bringing in, but also how much you're going to need to spend in the future.
Exactly, and a good rule of thumb is to take your current expenses and project them out. A common way to do this is by assuming an inflation rate, usually around 2% to 3% per year.
Okay, so if someone's current annual expenses are, say, $50,000, how would they calculate that over, let's say, 20 years?
Good question. If we use a 3% inflation rate, you'd multiply your current expenses by 1.03 for each year. So after 20 years, that $50,000 would balloon to about $90,000 annually, just to maintain the same purchasing power.
Wow, that's significant. So it really highlights the importance of factoring in inflation when planning for retirement income.
Absolutely. And that leads us to another strategy, creating a diversified income stream. Relying on just one source of income can be risky, especially if inflation starts to eat into it.
What do you mean by diversified income streams?
Well, it's about having multiple sources of income. For example, you might have Social Security, a pension, and some investment income, maybe even rental income if you own property. The idea is that if one income stream is affected by inflation, others may not be as severely impacted.
So it's like spreading your bets, right?
Exactly. And another aspect to consider is how your investments can help keep pace with inflation. Investing in assets like stocks or real estate can provide growth that outpaces inflation over the long term.
That makes sense. But, a lot of people might feel nervous about investing, especially if they're nearing retirement.
That's a valid concern. A good approach is to gradually shift your asset allocation as you approach retirement. For instance, when you're younger, you might have a higher percentage in stocks. But as you get closer to retirement, you could consider shifting some assets into bonds or more stable investments.
Right, to preserve capital while still allowing for some growth.
Exactly. And don't forget about keeping a portion of your portfolio in investments that are specifically designed to hedge against inflation, like Treasury inflation-protected securities, TIPS. These can provide a guaranteed return that adjusts with inflation.
That's really interesting. So it sounds like there are definitely tools out there to help combat the effects of inflation.
Definitely. And speaking of tools, another strategy is budgeting with flexibility in mind. You should have a budget that accounts for both your fixed and variable expenses, but also allows for adjustments as needed.
So if you have a variable expense category, you can adjust it based on how inflation impacts your overall financial situation.
Exactly. And incorporating an annual review of your budget can help you make these adjustments proactively, instead of waiting until you're already feeling the pinch.
That's a great tip.
And another thing to keep in mind is to prioritize paying down high-interest debt before retirement. The less you have to spend on interest payments, the more you can allocate towards savings or investments that will grow and keep up with inflation.
Right, because those high interest payments can really cut into your retirement income over time.
Exactly. And speaking of savings, having an emergency fund is crucial. It's like your safety net. If unexpected expenses arise, you won't have to dip into your retirement savings or investment accounts.
How much should someone aim to have in their emergency fund, especially as they approach retirement?
A common recommendation is to have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses saved up. But if you're nearing retirement, you may want to lean more towards that 6-month mark, just to be safe.
So it's all about having that cushion to weather any storms that come your way.
Exactly. And remember, it's not just about accumulating wealth. It's also about preserving what you've built.
That's really insightful, Alex. Now, let's talk about some practical steps for people to implement these strategies.
Sure. First, start by reviewing your current budget and expenses. You can use tools like budgeting apps or even a simple spreadsheet to track everything.
And what about projecting those expenses into the future?
You can use a simple formula. Take your current expenses and multiply by 1 plus inflation rate to the power of the number of years until retirement. It sounds complex, but it just takes some basic calculations.
Got it. And then once you have that figure, you can start planning how to generate that income.
Exactly. Then consider diversifying your income sources. Make a list of all potential income streams and evaluate how much each can contribute to your retirement.
And if someone finds they're short on income, what should they do?
They might need to look at delaying retirement, increasing their savings rate now, or even exploring part-time work during retirement.
Those are great options.
And one last thing to remember is to revisit your plan regularly. Life changes, and so should your financial strategy.
For sure. Now, what are some common pitfalls to avoid while navigating all this?
That's an important area to touch on. There are definitely some traps people can fall into when planning for inflation-adjusted retirement income.
You know, Alex, when we talk about inflation-adjusted retirement income, it's really easy to get caught up in the numbers and forget about the human aspect.
Absolutely, Jordan. I see it all the time. People often underestimate how inflation can chip away at their purchasing power. They might plan for a certain lifestyle, but if they don't account for rising costs, they can end up in a tough spot.
Right! And it's not just about the numbers, but also about the assumptions we make. Like, I've known folks who assume their expenses will decrease in retirement.
That's a common misconception. Many people think, I won't have a mortgage, and I'll travel less. But what happens is they might find themselves spending more on healthcare or unexpected expenses.
Exactly. I mean, I've heard stories of retirees who planned for a modest retirement budget only to face significant medical bills that weren't part of their calculations.
Yes, and that can be a real wake-up call. They often realize too late that they haven't saved enough to cover those rising costs.
So what are some of the danger signs people should look for? How can they recognize if they're in a risky position?
One big red flag is if your retirement savings aren't keeping pace with inflation. If you're just letting your money sit in a low-interest savings account, it's losing value over time.
Right, that's like a silent thief. You might not see it happening day to day, but over time, it really adds up.
Exactly, and then there's the tendency to ignore regular reviews of your budget. Life changes, and so do expenses. If you're not revisiting your financial plan each year, you might miss out on important shifts.
That's so true. It's easy to get complacent. I mean, just because you set a plan doesn't mean it's going to work forever.
Right, and I think another pitfall is thinking that Social Security will cover all your expenses. Many people have this idea that it will be their main source of income, but it often doesn't provide enough to live comfortably.
Yeah, I've heard that from friends who are nearing retirement. They're surprised to learn that Social Security might only cover a fraction of their costs.
Exactly. And when they realize that, they can feel overwhelmed and unsure of where to turn next. It's crucial to have additional income streams, whether that's investments part-time work, or other sources.
And then there's the temptation to take Social Security too early. I mean, sure, you can start as early as 62, but you miss out on those benefits if you don't wait.
Yes, that's a big decision. If you can hold off and let those benefits grow, it can make a significant difference in the long run.
And let's not forget about lifestyle inflation. When people retire, they often want to enjoy life more, which can lead to overspending.
Totally. It's easy to think, I've worked hard, so I deserve to splurge. But if you're not careful, those splurges can eat into your savings quickly.
That's such a balancing act. How do you advise clients to handle that?
Well, I encourage them to create a separate, fun budget. Set aside a specific amount each month for those activities or purchases they want to enjoy in retirement. That way, they can indulge without derailing their financial plan.
That's a smart approach. It gives them the freedom to enjoy life while still being responsible.
Right, and another common pitfall is not having a diversified investment strategy. Relying too heavily on one type of investment can be risky, especially when markets fluctuate.
Definitely. I've seen people put all their money into real estate or stocks, thinking it's a sure bet. But if that market takes a hit, they're left vulnerable.
Exactly. A diversified portfolio can help mitigate risks. It's about spreading out that risk across different asset classes, so you're not overly exposed to any one market.
And it's not just about diversifying investments either. It's also about considering different income sources, like pensions, rental income, or part-time work, right?
Yes! The more sources of income you have, the less reliant you'll be on any one stream. And that can really help cushion against inflation challenges.
So I guess the key takeaway is to keep evaluating and adjusting your financial plans, right?
Absolutely. Regularly monitoring your expenses and investments and being open to making changes as needed are essential practices.
And if someone starts feeling uneasy about their financial situation, what should they do?
The first step is to reassess their current budget and projections. Sometimes simply recalibrating those numbers can provide clarity.
And don't forget to talk to a financial advisor. Getting a second opinion can make a world of difference.
Definitely. A good advisor can help identify potential pitfalls and guide you through strategies to enhance your retirement income.
It sounds like the biggest lesson here is to be proactive, not reactive.
Yes. Staying engaged with your financial situation will lead to better outcomes in retirement.
So those are some immediate steps you can take. Now, let's bring everything together and look at how to move forward effectively. So Alex, now that we've unpacked inflation and how it impacts retirement income, what are some immediate steps someone over 40 can take to get started on this?
Right. Well, one of the first things I'd suggest is to review your current budget. Take a close look at your expenses and see where you can make adjustments. It might be helpful to categorize them into essential and non-essential. That way, you can identify areas where you might trim back.
That makes sense. And then I guess it would be good to think about how to allocate those savings, right?
Absolutely. Once you identify some savings, consider directing those funds into a high-yield savings account or a diversified investment account. You want to make your money work for you, especially in an inflationary environment.
What about tools? Are there any apps or resources that can help with budgeting or tracking expenses?
There are quite a few. Apps like Mint or YNAB, You Need a Budget, can really help you track your spending and create a budget that reflects your current financial situation. They're user-friendly and can give you a clearer picture of where your money goes each month.
YNAB has that proactive approach, right? So you're not just reacting to expenses, but planning ahead?
Exactly. It's about giving every dollar a job. It encourages you to think ahead and plan for upcoming expenses, which is crucial for long-term financial health.
And what about actually planning for retirement? Should folks start thinking about how much they'll need?
Definitely. A good starting point is to estimate your retirement expenses. There are various retirement calculators available online that can help you project how much you'll need. I recommend aiming for a retirement income that's about 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income, adjusting for inflation, of course.
Wow, that's an important number to keep in mind. And once they have that figure, what's next?
Next, it's time to evaluate your current retirement savings. Look at your 401k, IRA, or other retirement accounts. You want to ensure you're contributing enough to meet that income target, especially if your employer offers a match. That's free money.
Right. So maximizing contributions is key. Are there limits on how much you can contribute?
Yes, there are annual limits for 401k and IRA contributions, and they tend to change each year. It's crucial to stay updated on those limits and make sure you're taking full advantage, especially as you approach retirement age.
Let's talk a bit about investment strategies. Should people be looking at different types of investments to combat inflation?
For sure, a diversified portfolio can be very effective. Including assets like stocks, real estate, or even commodities can help shield your retirement income from inflation. Stocks historically have outpaced inflation over time, so they're worth considering.
That makes a lot of sense. What about education? Are there any books or resources you'd recommend for someone who wants to learn more about managing their finances in this context?
One of my favorites is The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. It offers practical steps for budgeting and saving. Another excellent resource is The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, which provides insights into investing wisely over the long term.
Those sound like great reads. And I imagine having a good understanding of investing can really empower folks, especially as they think about retirement.
Absolutely. The more informed you are, the better decisions you can make. And don't hesitate to reach out to a financial advisor if you feel overwhelmed. Having professional guidance can help you navigate your specific situation.
Speaking of guidance, what about building habits? Are there daily or weekly practices that can help someone stay on track with their finances?
Yes, creating a habit of regular check-ins with your budget is crucial. Maybe set aside time each week to review your spending, adjust your budget if needed, and reconfirm your financial goals. Just like any other aspect of life, consistency is key.
Totally agree. And I think it's also about mindset, right? Staying positive and focused on those goals can really make a difference.
Exactly. Having a growth mindset around your finances can help you remain motivated. Celebrate small wins along the way. If you pay off a debt or hit a savings milestone, take a moment to acknowledge that progress.
Great advice. How about starting small for those who might feel overwhelmed by all this information?
Starting small is a great approach. Maybe begin with just one change, like increasing your savings rate by 1% or setting aside a small amount for a specific investment. It's amazing how those small steps can add up over time.
And that feeling of progress can be really motivating, right?
Yes, it builds momentum. And before you know it, you're making more significant changes. Just keep in mind that the key is to stay consistent and be patient with yourself.
So to sum it up, we've talked about budgeting, investing, and building habits. There's a lot to consider, but it's all about taking those incremental steps toward financial security.
Exactly. Those incremental steps can lead to significant changes in your financial future.
Well, that's a lot of actionable advice. I think listeners are going to find it really helpful. Let's bring everything together. So as we wrap up our discussion on inflation-adjusted retirement income, we really touched on some important points.
Yeah, we did. First off, understanding how inflation impacts your purchasing power over time is crucial. It's not just about saving a certain amount. It's about ensuring that your money keeps pace with rising costs.
Absolutely. And then there's the importance of having a diversified income stream during retirement. Relying solely on one source can really put you at risk, right?
For sure. Having a mix of income sources, like Social Security, pensions, and personal investments, can help provide that stability you need. And, of course, we talked about the significance of planning for healthcare costs, which can really add up as you age.
Right. And let's not forget the value of revisiting your retirement plan regularly. Life changes, and so do financial markets, so keeping an eye on your strategy is key.
Exactly. Staying proactive can help you adapt to those changes and make informed decisions that support your long-term goals.
So, when you think about your retirement income, keep these takeaways in mind. It's about being prepared, flexible, and informed, right?
Definitely. Remember, it's never too late to start planning or adjusting your strategy.
And if you found this conversation helpful, we'd love for you to like and subscribe. Also, share your thoughts in the comments. If you know someone over 40 who could benefit from this, don't hesitate to share this episode with them.
Yeah, and next time, we'll dive into something really interesting. Retirement stress test, scenario planning. It's all about preparing for those unexpected twists in retirement.
Sounds like a crucial topic. Thanks for joining us today, everyone.
Looking forward to our next chat.
Until then, take care.